Hi, everyone. We'll be kicking off in 1 minute. So for those of you already here, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. All right, we've got France, Paris, Germany, Berlin, Saudi Arabia. Amazing. All right, we'll let a few more people trickle in, but we'll get started. So welcome to CFO Connect Demo Day. So this is the first of CFO Connect's new series for entertainingly informative demos of the best tools for finance. So who am I? I'm Michelle. I'm the head of brand and comms at Spendesk. I'm based in Paris. I work behind the scenes on CFO Connect, which means I have the luck to work daily with the incredible team you know and love at CFO Connect, Luke, Georgie, Ben, who are here in the chat. And today I'm here with Eva.
Hi, everybody.
Eva, introduce yourself. Great.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Eva. I'm a finance leader at Spendesk. I'm also based in Paris, and together we're going to be your host for the first edition of Demo Day, focused on FP&A tools.
Cool. So it won't take us very long to get into the meat of today's Demo Day, but I think one thing we wanted to start with, Eva especially, when we asked the community basically which tool category should we kick off when it comes to Demo Day, the overwhelming response was FP&A. We have 750, almost 800 people signed up for specifically this. So tell me more. Why are people so excited about FP&A?
Yeah, so, it's very hot topic, especially when your business is growing. And it's super easy to get lost between spreadsheet, taking the time to implement the right tool because you want to help your business to grow and to take the right decision. And at the same time, you need some time to find the right tool that suits you. But, don't take it from me. Because kicking us off is the FP&A expert, Christian Wattig, founder of the FP&A Prep. I hope you already registered to his newsletter. He is also director of the FP&A certificate program at Wharton.
Perfect. So Christian will be joining us. So we're so excited to have him. Eva and I are really lucky. We've already had a bit of a sneak peek of what he'll be presenting today. So we'll get right into that. However, Luke and the team have made sure that I promised to share a few tips for everybody watching. So just before he kicks off, there's a dedicated Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. So make sure to ask your questions there and upvote your favorites. That helps us at the end for Christian's Q&A, know which ones he should tackle first. Look out for spontaneous polls. This will be happening all throughout the sessions over the next few hours. And finally, keep it light, keep it fun. We're here to be the best versions of our FP&A selves. So with that, over to you, Christian, and we'll see you a bit later for the Q&A.
Thank you, and welcome to this demo day today. And I'm excited to be here because I'd like to tell you a bit about the future of FP&A and what some things are you can implement right now, even before you get some of those amazing tools that you learn about later. Before I jump into it, really briefly, so my name is Christian Wattig. I've spent over 14 years in FP&A leadership roles, started at large consumer goods companies, Procter & Gamble and Unilever. You see some of the brand names here on the screen. And then I transitioned into tech and had a very exciting time at Squarespace, a website builder company, because I was leading the FP&A team there when we took the company public, which was a fantastic experience to get the CFO ready for that. And then I moved to work at a company that you'll actually hear more about later today, DataRails, one of the FP&A tool companies. At that point, I decided to teach, because teaching is my passion. It's something I've been doing on the side for a long time. And now I'm a full-time corporate trainer. I had the privilege to build the FP&A certificate program for the Wharton School. It's a large university in the US. And I also teach training programs on the side. And I share my knowledge on LinkedIn and on a newsletter that's followed by 30,000 subscribers. Okay, now without further ado, let's talk about how FP&A looks like today for many companies. and what the future may bring. So today, a lot of teams focus on formatting their data. They spend time reconciling between different systems. You're dealing with exceptions on a regular basis. And so with these 3 tasks alone, you may already spend the first or second day of your month-end close. You don't really yet have any numbers to analyze. You may also have to spend time removing duplicates. A lot of copy pasting goes on between different Excel spreadsheets or from Excel into PowerPoint or your presentation program of choice. And then, even when all the numbers are fine, the data is finally cleaned, you have to create the standard reports, your P&L, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, and any cuts of the data. And that's a task that you do every month or every quarter again and again. And then you do variance analysis, commentary, and do the analysis and drive into that, which can at times also be repetitive. But now, of course, everyone's talking about automation and AI. And with automation, I mean various different tools, some of which you'll learn about today as well. And with automation and AI, all of this will go away. I'm certain of that. Some companies are already there, especially companies with larger budgets for software, etc. They've been there for a while already. But now this becomes more and more accessible as many tools also start to create offerings for small and medium-sized companies. And it's important that we get rid of these tasks, not just because they are less interesting, but also because they're important to get us to the future of FP&A. What does it look like? Well, you actually spend time on in-depth analysis. You don't rush from updating your spreadsheets to your PowerPoint decks to your forecast without any time left for analysis. You do have the majority of the month to do that. And then you can become a strategic advisor to the business, which means you have close relationships with the different department heads. You understand their strategies, how the strategies translate into tactics, to action plans, and then crucially, how you measure them. And that's how you add value, by connecting the dots. Then you can also challenge the assumptions, make sure that leaders look at the issues from all angles and have a data-based approach. And when you connect strategies, tactics, action plans, and measurement, you can actually make concrete recommendations that drive the business forward. You can discover those risks and opportunities. Now, there are some things you can do today without even implementing a new software tool yet to help you get there, to help you free up some of the time in your day-to-day to do more of these tasks that I have on the screen here. And so there are 5 time sinks that FP&A teams encounter. I've seen those again and again at the various companies I worked at and the companies I've been consulting. The first one is teams prepare too many slides. Variance analysis takes too long. The data isn't clean enough. There are last-minute requests that slow you down. And creating the slides simply takes too long. So how do you address these? Well, when it comes to too many slides, an issue I often see is, the monthly reporting decks or the quarterly reporting decks are 40 to 50 slides long. And the reason there are that many slides is because the finance teams think that leaders need to have all the metrics, as many metrics as possible at their fingertips to make better decisions. But that's simply not true. You want to point leaders to where they need to pay attention to, where the metrics are that matter right now for what's going on in the business and for the story that you're telling about, do we have an issue with sales? Do we have an issue with profit? Do we have an issue in this area? You need to highlight them. And depending on the people you're presenting to, they may also be fine then to just get a spreadsheet with the remainder of the data, which makes this a lot easier. And then you need to tailor your presentation. how do you tailor the presentation? Well, you need to figure out what each of the individual leaders you're presenting to, what they care about. And those may be different things, right? And the only way to find it out is to ask them. And what I would recommend is, rather than asking them which slides can be eliminated, because they may say, oh, well, let's just keep them in there just in case. I'd like to turn it around and ask them which slides are the most important to you, which ones should we keep. Move the rest to the appendix. Don't eliminate them right away, because that people may second guess themselves or realize when they're gone that they need them. But after you had them in the appendix for a few cycles and you didn't get any questions about them, you can eliminate those slides. And you can take it even a step further and run what's called a skip test. What's a skip test? Well, you decide yourself, based on the conversations you had with leaders, based on what you know about the business, you decide yourself which slides can probably be cut. You put them in the appendix, you don't tell anybody about it, and you see what happens, right? It's a test, it's an experiment. If you get questions, if people say, oh, where's the slide about R&D expenses by product, you have it in the appendix, you can point them there, you can easily bring it back. But you will be surprised by how much you can eliminate if you go with a method like that. All right, that's too many slides. Now let's talk about variance analysis. Variance analysis is the process of comparing your actuals to your forecast, your budget, and your prior year to discover risks and opportunities. That's variance analysis. But there are different ways to go about it. Some of them are more efficient. Preparation is key. If you might be surprised to find that you can set up your spreadsheets even before the month end close is over. Make sure you have the latest forecast. Make sure you have the prior year actuals, budget for that month or that quarter, and have everything ready, ideally in one sheet. Meaning you have your actuals and you have your comparator in one sheet. That makes it easy to run analysis and you don't have to jump between different spreadsheets. And then I have prioritize automation here. What I mean with that is that automation, and even things like implementing a new tool, are often seen as important but not urgent, right? There are always other fires that you have to take out, other issues to solve. And so you have to prioritize automation. You have to actively say, okay, I'll put 3 hours in my calendar on a Friday afternoon. We'll go through my Excel sheets and see, can I add some formulas? Can I make them more dynamic and more automated? And then 80-20 is so important when it comes to variance analysis. 80-20 means that you focus on the 20% of the variances that drive 80% of the overall change between expectations and reality. And so that means you need to ignore small variances. If you have an accounting background, or maybe you have accounting responsibilities and FP&A, that requires a mindset shift, right? Because in accounting, you have to pay attention to those small variances. The numbers have to be exactly right. But in an area like variance analysis, that comes to bite you, because then it's easy to fall into analysis paralysis. So consider the materiality and focus on the story. What's behind the numbers? And going behind the numbers requires drilling deeper into data and, crucially, walking over to the desk of the budget owner and having a conversation about it. And you can only do that if you have an 80-20 approach. If you try to do that with every variance, you won't get anywhere and you won't surface any story. And then partner. So if you find an issue, ask your business partners about what's going on. Don't think you need to solve everything on your own. The third time sink is around data cleanliness. So clean data means you don't need to do anything to it for it to be usable and it's up to date. But it's not always the case, right? If you need to, if you have text that needs to be formatted, or if maybe there could be missing entries, or you're not sure if it's 100% up to date, then your data isn't clean. there are 3 things you can do to address that. The first and most important thing when it comes to clean data is that every metric must have an owner. That means someone whose job it is to make sure it's up to date and it's available, it's accurate, it's clean. Doesn't have to be finance, the owner, could also be data science or IT if you have that. Or if it's a manually tracked item, whoever is closest to the source should be the owner. So in the case of headcount, for example, it may be that the HR business partner or the recruiter should take the ownership of the accuracy and availability of that metric. And then lastly, it's important to be transparent about data cleaning. Don't just close your eyes and suffer through it as the finance leader. Flag it, raise it with the CEO, raise it with other senior leaders, because they know that their decisions are only as good as the data they are based on. So flag hard to obtain metrics and thereby get the help, get the resources to fix it at the source. Again, it doesn't always have to be finance. I know that we are often the people who are at the front lines of fixing data issues, but ask for help. Then last minute requests. So that's one of the least favorite things about working in FP&A, right? Imagine the scenario where a board meeting is coming up, you finish the slides perfectly on time 2 weeks before the board meeting. A few days pass, you don't hear any questions or follow-ups from the leader. So you think, oh, I did a pretty good job with the deck, everything's fine. And then the day before the board meeting, the CEO comes and says, oh, these 5 slides, we need to change them. Oh, by the way, there are 5 additional slides that I would like you to add. And you work until late in the night with a lot of stress. There are ways to at least partially prevent that. One of them is creating a shell. So what's a shell? Instead of finishing the deck with all the slides and visualizations, you just put the headlines, you're just communicating what you're planning to put on each slide. You're communicating that by putting a few bullets, no visuals. Data doesn't even have to be final, just what the story will be, what the key message will be. Then you share that with leaders, and what you may find is that it's easier for them to react to something. So it happened to be numerous times, up front, I talk to the various leaders and say, hey, here's the board deck from last time. You probably still remember this. Is there anything you would like to change in the layout? They say no, it was fine. But then when they see your slides with the updated numbers and the key messages in the story, all of a sudden they have all these great ideas about what else to add. And usually that's 1 or 2 days before the big meeting. And so by sharing the shell up front, you give them something to look at, you give them something to react to. And it doesn't always work, but if it works, then you have more time to implement those change requests. You can also share a pre-read, because you may think, well, a pre-read, doesn't that mean I have to, it takes even more time, I have to prepare things earlier? Yes, but it may help you to negotiate for more time to put things together, because they're getting something of value, and that may help you with getting a bit more lead time. And then, important thing here in the end, smart FP&A analysts don't put everything they know on every slide, because you want to be able to have some additional detail in your back pocket in case there are follow-up questions. If you share everything you have, if people come up with any follow-up question, you're in trouble, right? So of course, if you don't get these follow-up requests, speak to it, share the information, make sure that it's being presented as a voiceover on the slides, because we also don't want to hold anything back in the end. Okay. The last time sink is that it takes too long to create the slides in the first place. My number 1 tip there is do the formatting of your presentation at the very end. That has two reasons why this is better. One, if you skip back and forth between focusing on the content, the story, the visualization, and then the formatting and making sure everything aligns, if you skip back and forth, you're not going to be as creative. You're not going to be as zoned in onto the story you're trying to tell. So it's better to just do the story, do the commentary, do that first, and then the formatting last. And number two, if you do the formatting and the end all together, it's easier to create a more consistent look. And a consistent look of your slides is important because it's just a signal of quality. You know, if your slides look messy and misaligned, then some leaders may even subconsciously assume that you didn't put as much rigor into your numbers either. You know, that your numbers are, maybe they have inaccuracies, you didn't pay attention as much because you didn't pay that much attention to the design. Sometimes takes some time to wrap our head around that as number people, as people who are analytical and focus on the story, but that's important. Then if you can, create as much as possible in Excel, right? Excel is your friend. It's still the #1 tool in FP&A. We all know how to use it probably better than PowerPoint because we simply use Excel each and every day. So create your tables in Excel and then, as a tip, paste them as an image, because sometimes if you paste things between Excel and PowerPoint, it can break. Of course, you'll learn about FP&A tools later on, and none of this, you know, you wouldn't ever have to paste anything from Excel into PowerPoint with many of these FP&A tools. And then lastly, keep it simple. The message needs to be immediately clear. So what I like to do is skip through the slides quickly to see, is there anything that isn't, is there any slide where the key message doesn't jump out at me? If you skip through your deck quickly and it takes you 10 seconds to remember what the key message is, it's not simple enough. And then lastly, a clean and consistent look beats stylistic bells and whistles because the clarity is higher. Yes, it's important that your slides look nice and they're nicely structured, but cleanliness and consistency is more important because that's what helps people connect the dots. And you don't want, if you have a confused leader you're presenting to, then they're probably not listening to what you're saying and you have less of an impact. So clarity is super, super important. All right. I hope you can find at least one thing of these 5 things and how to address them that you can implement today, that you can implement right away. That's my hope. Now let me talk about Excel a bit, because today it's really about tools. But the images you see here, that was the reality of technology when Excel was first launched. Excel was launched for Windows in 1987. Floppy disks were there, Windows 2.0 came out, China sent its first ever email in that year. And Excel is still alive today, amazingly, for a software product, right? Because of its unparalleled flexibility and ease of use. Those are the standout features of Excel. But there are also shortcomings. So when you think about it, you're probably aware of some of the shortcomings of Excel already. It's insufficient autosave features. So if you have an integration with Microsoft Cloud, OneDrive, then yeah, there's some autosave feature, but only if your company subscribe to those additional services. It's not as seamless. Excel has limited version control. So keeping track of 5 different budget versions, 10 different forecast versions can be very difficult, especially if for each of those versions, you have multiple scenarios. Super, super difficult in Excel. There's an inefficient opportunity to do any consolidation, right? Consolidation meaning taking multiple departments, rolling them up into one P&L, or taking multiple countries, business units, rolling them up. It's possible, of course, but it requires linking between tabs, maybe even linking between files, which can break easily. And it's just not built for that. There are size limitations. So You may have heard this before. Excel is not a database. You can have, I don't know, I worked with Excel files that worked fine with 100,000 lines, but once you exceed that, it can crash easily. It takes a long time to open, and it's just not built to handle a lot of data. Now, this is where the FP&A software solutions come in that you'll learn about later today. So without talking about any specific solutions, because that's where, that's why we have these talks later today, I'd like to share a few features that most of them have in common to ground you for those conversations, and that you have something to listen to when you hear about these presentations that come later today. So the one thing that most of them have in common is that they integrate with your ERP system, potentially also with your CRM and your HR management system and other tools. Oh, by the way, really important, I haven't mentioned it before, we're getting to Q&A soon. This is the last slide, so please don't hesitate to put your questions in the Q&A box. So these FP&A tools connect with your other systems, and they bring everything together in a cloud. Some of them connect with pretty much everything you can throw at them. Some of them are a bit more limited in terms of what you can connect with. So that's important to know up front. And then they create a single source of truth. Some companies also call it a data lake in the cloud. What's great about that is that you can easily get everything you need immediately, right? You don't have to go to your CRM, to your HR system, to your ERP, and then get data that doesn't speak to each other. It doesn't speak to each other. I mean, you have a unique identifier that ties all the data together. So you can do this all-important work of connecting operational metrics with your financials. That's how you become more forward-looking and how you can improve your forecasting. With these FP&A software solutions, your standard reporting are always up to date. I recommend that every FP&A team has a set of reports that don't change every month, every quarter. And with these tools, you set them up once, you press refresh, and you have your reports done for you, and you don't have to spend basically any time on them. It's fantastic. They provide easy-to-use interactive dashboards. They provide self-serve reporting, meaning you can give this dashboard to your CEO, to your head of R&D, head of marketing, and say, hey, here's your dashboard. If you need any different cuts, any different views, there are buttons here. You can change them on your own. You don't have to come to finance whenever you want to see different slice of the data. Many of the tools that you'll hear about today, I think probably even all of them, can be implemented without you needing to have a large IT team. Finance people, you can do this. You'll get support from those companies, and they help you get up and running quickly. Then there are tailored solutions specifically for small companies, specifically for medium and enterprise solutions as well. It's completely different 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the market was fully focused on large-scale enterprise solutions. Very different now. And they provide full audit trails. So you always know who changed what and when. Super important to keep that version control. And then many of these tools also have a forecasting and budgeting module, which means that you don't have to send Excel templates to different departments to collect their inputs. They enter it directly in the system, and then when you press refresh or download or update, your consolidation is ready without you having to worry about it. It's fantastic, especially when you have a hectic budgeting season, or you want to make sure that you're considering everyone's inputs for your forecasting. So to wrap this up, I would go as far as saying, I'm a full-time instructor now. I'm a full-time FP&A teacher. But if I ever wanted to go back and do, a VP of FP&A role, director of FP&A role, I would insist that they need to have one of these FP&A software solutions installed, because I've seen how it is without these tools. I've seen how it is with these tools, and your life is just so much easier when you're using one of them. So with that, happy to move to Q&A. And there's also a QR code here where you can sign up to my weekly newsletter, where I share more insights about FP&A and best practices.
Amazing, Christian. Thank you so much. We've had a bunch of questions coming in. We'll have a couple minutes to be able to take the top ones, and then anything we can't answer, we'll have to answer offline. So it looks like Bruno has been our top question asker with upvotes on his questions. So let's start with the first one. So Christian, when is the time to leave the flexibility of Microsoft Excel and invest money to use a budgeting tool? For context, a startup which is adding new businesses every quarter.
So if you're a startup who's adding new businesses every quarter, that time is now, because integrating those businesses, I know from experience, I've worked at a few companies where we bought additional companies, we tried to integrate them. It's a lot of work. And if you're spending time harmonizing things, looking at things anyway, then why not bring them into a tool that you're using across all of these businesses, which then makes it a lot easier to look at the numbers. And you're probably not even going to spend that much more time doing that because you are bringing in new businesses anyway.
Perfect. Great. And the next most upvoted question, also from Bruno, was tell us about the usage of AI in FP&A. Which are the best tools now to empower our teams and increase impact in our business? I know you've touched on AI quite a bit already, but anything else to add that maybe you haven't covered?
Yeah, it's a great question. So FP&A, we use two subfields of AI. There's machine learning and there's generative AI, right? Machine learning has been around for a long time. I've implemented a machine learning-based forecast 8 years ago at Unilever. And machine learning is fantastic to supplement your existing forecasting because it takes historical data and then it spits out a forecast. It's very sophisticated what's going on in these models, and it's a fantastic way to supplement your existing forecasting methods because it has different advantages and disadvantages. It removes human bias, introduces other biases. That's machine learning. And then there's generative AI, your ChatGPT, your Gemini, your Opus from Anthropic and others. And then, of course, also many of the FP&A tool companies are implementing AI chatbots as well. We are at the beginning of the journey there. I'm really looking forward to see what especially those FP&A tool companies are going to do, because a vanilla ChatGPT or Gemini can help you to an extent, but they have clear limitations because you can't paste any sensitive data into them. And they have the tendency to hallucinate, to make things up that aren't true. And I know that a number of FP&A tool companies are working on solving that problem. And I'm really excited to see what they'll come up with.
Amazing. Cool. I think we've got time for two more quick ones. So this one came in almost at the beginning from Arturo. How would FP&A be acted upon when talking about starting businesses without departments or starting a business without departments?
So typically at the early stage of the companies, as the founder, you have to wear the FP&A hat, right? Maybe you have a bookkeeper already, but you likely won't have an FP&A leader and certainly no FP&A team. So it's important that you know the basics of 6 areas, specifically in FP&A. That's how I look at FP&A. There's annual budgeting, there's forecasting, there's financial analysis. So that's taking raw data, turning it into insights. There's financial modeling, specifically modeling to analyze if an investment decision is financially viable, makes sense. Then there's business partnering, how you influence your co-founders, the other people you're working with, and how you make sure that you collaborate most effectively. And then lastly, there's storytelling, which is, of course, all important if you're early stage in your startup, because you're telling the story of where your business is going, and you're using that to get additional funding, to get investors to come on board, to convince early employees to come on board. So I would probably focus on the storytelling piece and the forecasting and the modeling. I think those are probably the 3 most important areas to build up your skill set when you're an early stage founder.
Yeah. Great answer. And I think that actually helps to answer one of the other questions that came in from Vanessa about different backgrounds that you can have when you're joining FP&A. So the very last question is going to be from Zena. Do you think that an FP&A team should be more on the ground, for example, at a plant, to have accurate answers on variations?
Great questions. Thank you. Yeah, so generally speaking, there are 3 different ways an FP&A team can be organized. There's the decentralized way, or actually, let's start. There's the centralized way where you just have, you have a marketing team, you have a sales team, you have a finance team, and FP&A sits in that finance organization and reports up to the CFO. That's the most common situation. But then you can also have decentralized structure where FP&A people are embedded in the marketing team, report into the chief marketing officer. They're embedded in the factory, report to the factory director, and probably have a dotted line to the CFO or to someone in finance. And then the third one is a metric structure where you have multiple bosses and you're sitting close to your business partners, but still you're basically reporting into finance. There are pros and cons to all of these approaches. For factory finance specifically, I would definitely recommend that you have finance on the ground in the factory, simply because a factory is like its own little company, right? There's so much unique to that operation that maybe the headquarter doesn't hear about, doesn't know about. And you can add a lot of value if you can walk out to the shop floor and actually look at the machines and look at their operations and connect that to your unique perspective, which is that you see the financials, you see the P&L, you see how all of that translates into financial metrics. And so the closer you can get to the business, the better.
Amazing. Christian, this has been so insightful. So a huge thank you again. So everyone on the chat, big thank you to Christian. Christian, again, he's the director of the FP&A Certificate Program in Wharton, founder of FP&A Prep. I know the team is going to share the link. If you'd like to hear more from him, you can subscribe to his newsletter. That's fpaprep.com/newsletter. And so a huge thank you again, Christian. This has been just fantastic.
Thanks so much.
For everyone else joining us or continuing with us, so be back here at 3:45 p.m. CET or 9:45 a.m. EST. We'll be having our first demo with Data Rails, touted as the most flexible solution to turn your Excel into a lean, mean FP&A machine. So make sure that you scroll and hit the join now so that you join the next session, and we'll see you soon. Thank you again, Christian.